Welcome to our final episode of Fearless Female Founders, Season 1, Let's Go. Throughout this season, Kylie and I have been sharing learnings and experiences from our own entrepreneurial journeys. Our hope is to create a community that is supportive and honest and lets you know that you're not in this alone. In this episode, we're going to be diving into launching your business. You've got a killer product or service, you're ready to get yourself out there, but you may not be really sure how to successfully launch your business.
And we're so glad to have Kate joining us. We both met Kate a while ago, worked together, and since have all started our own businesses. So Kate, we're so excited you're here. I'll let you give a little intro about what you've been up to.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, I know it feels like yesterday we met, but also quite at the beginning of my journey, I'd say, entering the workforce. I met you both. I have been in social media marketing for almost 11 years now, which is crazy. 11 years ago, social media marketing wasn't even called that. It was just part of digital strategy, and it's evolved so much throughout my career. And I've had the opportunity to work both on an agency side with many clients from CPG brands to B2B brands, healthcare, everything in between, as well as working on the client side. So being part of kind of an internal marketing team, internal brand team. So I have kind of both experiences, which has been so helpful and great in launching my business and understanding how to partner with outside companies, but also how to kind of run a business. About a year and a couple months ago, so a year and some change, branched out on my own. So officially started my own freelance and social media consulting business. It was due to actually losing my job initially and having to kind of take this like forced pause and evaluate, what I'm looking for in the next chapter, in the next adventure. And I'd always kind of freelanced on the side and thought about it and thought about starting my own business, but always had so many questions and was able to take that time and ask people like the both of you, like, how do you get started, what to do, and find the community of other freelancers, and kind of made the connection and decided to dive all in, and definitely don't regret it now.
Congratulations. Yeah, 1 year. That's a huge milestone.
Yes. Yeah. It struck me I think it was in October, I hit 1 year. And so it was 2 months ago, and it just feels like an absolutely wild ride. Time flew, but it also posed a lot of challenges. So it felt slow at times, but yeah, definitely not looking back now.
Amazing. Love that. And then we could probably do a whole separate episode on what led up to that moment for you, like what was part of that decision, right? To not go back to the corporate workforce and go off on your own. But we'll have to write that down for a next episode because we've got a lot to cover in our time today talking about launching. So yeah, your specialty is social media. And in this episode, we want to dive into using social media as a tool for launching your business. But before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of that, I want to just sort of reflect on, what it takes holistically to launch your business, because it's more than just a social media plan, right? That's a component of that bigger strategy. And all of us have launched our own businesses as well. So Kylie, maybe do you want to talk through, thoughts of, you've launched a couple different things actually in the last year, and what that looked like for you and what process you kind of went through to prepare your, maybe you want to talk about Olive and Emmy a little bit.
Yeah. So I launched Olive and Emmy a week or so ago. So it's an online e-com store for marketing resources and then little screen-free activities and apparel for littles and their parents. It's been super fun to put together, but the launch was a big part of it. You work so hard in preparing your business. You have this idea, and it all comes down to how do you share your message? And it's really understanding your audience and putting together a plan of how you're going to communicate your business and your services and products to the customer in the right way. So, which I think is going to be different depending on what you're offering and who you're trying to reach, right? So For me, I'm trying to reach solopreneurs and parents, so people that have their own business. Probably maybe one of you on that's listening, honestly. And a lot of people are on social media, and so social is a big part of launching businesses nowadays. I mean, I think, like you said, Kate, it used to just be a tactic and a plan, and now it's a whole discipline. And so I think it's really digging into how do you best articulate your message. Getting emails is really important, email marketing. So making sure that you have, content that you can, drive people to, maybe even looking at putting together a full marketing plan that could include direct mail, social, networking. It really can run the gamut. But the biggest thing I'd say is to have a plan. Don't just have your website launch and hope that it's going to work. It's not, and rubber will hit the road, and you'll have to figure out how to best communicate your plan and your offerings to your target audience.
I think people can get overwhelmed when you start talking about putting together like a marketing plan, especially if you don't have a marketing background. And
Absolutely, yeah.
I think when you're first starting off, that can feel really daunting. Or even inaccessible, right? Because you're just starting off, you're maybe bootstrapping your startup, and you can't go outsource, marketing support. So I think what I would tell people in that situation is don't overthink it, right? Like your customers, your audience, they're people, right? And don't forget that.
Mm-hmm.
And think about the people that can benefit from the service or product that you're offering, and then where can you talk to them? Where can you find them? Where can you reach them? Where are they hanging out? What media are they consuming? What conferences are they going to? And just look for opportunities to get yourself in front of them and have a conversation. I think the biggest mistake I see when companies are launching is that they're focused on themselves. They're focused on their company, and almost like cold education of like, here I am, and this is what I sell, and these are my wares, come buy from me, as opposed to coming at it from your customer's perspective. What's in it for them? What can you offer to them? What problems do you solve for them? And having that be your lead, as opposed to just like, hi, come, come be my client, right?
I'm just going to add and then kick it over to Kate. I think what I've noticed with Olive and Emmy is when I share something that is more communicating a challenge that my business offers for the target audience, my engagement on social drastically increases, like tools and tricks, not just selling products. And so maybe that's a good segue for you, Kate, just to start talking about social and why it's a powerful tool for launching your business.
Yeah, I would say echoing a lot of what both of you talked about is you're talking to people at the end of the day, and who's on social media except for every type of person. You can reach all different types of communities. You can reach, moms of, one kid, two kids, newborns, teenagers, grown. So like you can reach every type of person on social media with different types of content and messaging and storytelling, and it's just the one network that kind of everyone uses. Even if they use it in different ways, they're on it. You kind of think of like the core four channels of Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. And I just read the other day that like 72% of the US population is on almost all four. So it's like you can reach
Wow.
Yeah.
such an audience. It's just an easy tool, and it's free to sign up. It's free to make a page. It's free to post. It's definitely like a low investment when it comes to someone starting a business who doesn't maybe have a budget to invest in larger marketing. It's something everyone can kind of get started on, and it can be forgiving, which always is, I feel like, is surprising because we've seen sometimes when it's not. But you can post something and in 24 hours, if it doesn't work out, try something new. And there's not a lot of marketing tools that let you kind of adapt and evolve and optimize so quickly. So it's just such a great tool without, feeling like you're emptying the bank in order to give it a go.
A question for you, Kate, is when a business is just starting off and they're starting a blank page, right? It's a brand spanking new page. There's no content there, right? I think it can feel I don't know, like a lost cause in a way, right? Because you're like, I have no followers, I have no content. How do I even, where does this go? Like, how do I even get this going, right? So, do you think when people start their social media pages for the first time, do they need to boost their posts in order to get more visibility? I mean, can you rely on an organic growth strategy when your page is brand spanking new?
I think it kind of depends on the channel you're using too. I think if you're trying to launch something and you're more in like a service, like the three of us, and LinkedIn might be where you're spending more of your time, that's sometimes a little bit harder in boosting or running, a paid ad because you can target certain industries and certain titles and certain needs. It's LinkedIn is a great spot to kind of use some of those boosting dollars in order to talk about your services. And then with something like a TikTok or Instagram, like thanks to the algorithm and the ability for you to use the right keywords and hashtags and post something relevant, you can see a very average TikTok user with 70 followers and they post something but they have 200,000 views because the content was so strong.
Hmm.
So it can really play organically if you're using like a lot of video and you're on more of like kind of the consumer based platforms like an Instagram and TikTok, and then maybe something that you need a little bit more direct contact of like a LinkedIn is where you can use some of those boosting dollars.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I want to just underscore with what you said, because there was like a lot of really good nuggets in that, was knowing which social media channel is right for your business,
Yeah.
um, and that maybe is common knowledge, but I think it's really important, right? Like think about the service that you offer that kind of goes back to the initial point of knowing your audience and knowing where to reach them, right? Like LinkedIn might not be right for your brand. It might not be right for your business and don't, I guess maybe that's a question for you.
Yeah.
Kate. Should you even be there? Like should you even spend time there if it's not really right for your business, or do you think it's best to have a presence everywhere?
Yeah, I think when it comes to like launching social, you don't need to be everywhere at the launch. Like at your first get-go, like you don't feel like you need to have, 6 profiles, you're on everywhere. And when we talk about like it's already overwhelming enough to launch your business, like you don't need to kind of just give yourself more work for the sake of feeling like you need to check all the boxes.
Yeah.
But understanding, which platforms, and if it's only Instagram and you're selling, something like you'd sell on an Etsy, or you have a small shop and you're selling a product and you just want to start with Instagram, just start with Instagram and do it really, really well, get comfortable, and then be like, great, I'm ready to dip my toe over in TikTok, and you can pull your content over there. So understanding that you don't need to do everything at once when it comes to social, and you can kind of continue to let that evolve as your business grows. I feel like it alleviates a lot of like the initial stress of feeling like you have to have all these new logins and passwords and types of content, but really understanding that, if it's service based, LinkedIn is probably best. If it's product based, maybe something more like an Instagram or TikTok, and, you know, understanding too, like who your audience is. And there's so many great free resources and tools out there to like search where your audience is. And there's tons of like Nielsen data and Sprout Social data where you can truly just look at the end of the year reports and understand who's using which platforms and let that
Mm-hmm.
inform it, so you don't feel like you're taking some shot in the dark to reach your audience. But, really doing one platform well, I would say, is better than spreading yourself too thin.
Yeah, awesome. For those listening too, we'll link to some of those resources in the show notes as well.
Kate, would you say that I know like on Instagram or Facebook, you can post the same content on both platforms. Do you think like starting out, is that something you'd advise? Or would you say, let's just do like one platform really well instead of just copying it over?
Yeah, I think with Facebook and Instagram, copying over is great. Using both of the meta channels in the same way is a totally fair like strategy play. To use both, I feel like even Instagram Reels and TikTok, you can kind of repeat your content
Mm-hmm.
just because it's the same format. They're both vertical. They're using kind of the same understanding of how to build your content and who you're talking to. I would say when it comes to something like a LinkedIn or Twitter, that's sometimes where it starts to vary between the different platforms. I feel like LinkedIn is typically totally separate than most, just again based on it's a professional network. It's typically more service based than products. But when it comes to, yeah, Facebook, Instagram, I guess Twitter's X, TikTok, all of those things.
I will never call it X. I'm sorry. It will always be Twitter to me. Even though it says X, formerly Twitter, I'm like, it's always Twitter, guys.
Yeah. So this is kind of putting you on the spot, Kate, maybe, but what's your favorite platform and why? And what's your least favorite platform and why?
Yes, I would say professionally, my favorite platform, I use LinkedIn. It's the way I engage just because I am service-based consulting.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say I really have a least favorite, but it probably would be X Twitter. So that's just not one that I typically have ever seen a ton of feedback on or like different kind of connections. But when it comes to like personal use and me finding other small businesses and me connecting with my community, I would say TikTok. The algorithm is just, I would say, the most intelligent in bringing me to the right communities,
Mm.
and connecting me with other, female freelancers. Or I've made so many great connections and started following other accounts that like give me inspiration and give me more information. I would say that I've found the most on TikTok. I don't use it for my business, but it's helped.
One thing I learned this last year at a conference was to use Twitter for more of like information gathering or testing ideas. So as you launch, that could be some, just testing messages and ideas and seeing what comes back or who engages with it. I have not personally done that, but I think could be a nice way of using the platform. I used to be so avid on Twitter all the time and haven't. So I wonder who's even on that platform at this point. Kate, is it skew one way or the other? I know it's kind of gone through a huge transformation.
It's gone through a huge transformation. The last I saw, it definitely skews a little bit more male, a little bit more like sports and news focused types of content, a little bit less, I would say, to the small business, because that's one where organically might not see the reach. You don't really get a lot more suggested content
Yeah.
on that platform like you do on Instagram. I feel like more than 50% of my feed is suggested content. The things I might like, things I, have liked similar content to. So there's just not like a discoverability aspect on X is something like Instagram or TikTok.
Kate, when you help someone launch, when you start planning for a social launch, how far out how far are you planning content? Is it a couple weeks, a month? Like what does that kind of look like, and how could a listener kind of build out a social plan to launch?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like in an ideal world, at least a month is always helpful in order to kind of plan different types of content. So, video is kind of the queen of social media. It's, what helps you get the most awareness and views. And sometimes video can be quite an undertaking. If it's not something you're comfortable filming and editing and cutting yourself, like you need to recruit help and you need to, I pull in a, Gen Z college student who does it as a hobby. So sometimes like finding the right creator, giving them that like advantage too to help you build that content. I'd say at least about a month, but there's always a week before you're like, oh, I'd really love to get something out about. So there's always going to be the little last minute kind of addition. So the more time you can give yourself to kind of build that foundational plan, it allows for like those quick turn. If there's like, some social trend that fits your brand really well that you want to jump on, like it gives you the opportunity to have the time without the stress.
Yeah, I like that idea too with planning ahead and preparing ahead. Because for people who are launching a business, if you've already launched or you're preparing to launch, you've got to wear every hat from day one of your business. You're going to be the marketing person. You're going to be the billing person, the accounting. You're going to be the, new business development person. You're going to be the one actually performing the work. If you're a service-based business, and it's no joke when you've got to juggle all of that. So I can only imagine the additional stress of trying to manage, client inquiries and new business discussions, putting proposals together with, oh my God, I have to get this post done tonight so I can get it scheduled, right? That just would be that has been a nightmare that I have lived personally. So I can say from personal experience that planning that out and preparing that content so you can kind of schedule out, if you can schedule out a month that you don't even have to like touch it would be a dream. Maybe that's a little over ambitious, but I think the takeaway is just do as much as you can ahead so that you're not in the trenches, also trying to build the ladder,
And Kate, you
Yeah.
don't have to post every day. I just right? It depends on your audience and engagement. Or can you talk a little bit about that? And then I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of those tools that you use to maybe cut the videos or schedule posts if you have any recommendations.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to like cadence and how often you're posting and how much you're posting, it does not need to be every day. It does not need to be twice a day. Your launch doesn't need 10 posts on one day. You can kind of give yourself a little breath between each post because like I think we kind of mentioned earlier, it can be forgiving. You can post something and in 24 hours try something new and so giving each of your posts a little bit of room to be able to perform to their peak before you keep posting content. You don't want all your content out there and then it competing for the same place on someone's feed. You want kind of each post to be able to get its time in the light. So, posting a couple times maybe on launch, or if you're partnering with local influencers or you've got people sharing your content, sharing your announcement, maybe you've partnered with local media who's announcing your, brand launch, your built, if you're opening a brick and mortar, there's probably media coverage. Using all that content kind of on day one is great because it's going to be fresh. And then having more of that brand messaging maybe the next day, 2 days later, as the media coverage keeps bringing people to your channels. It's nice to kind of let that story keep telling itself rather than throwing everything out there at once and maybe, half of it unfortunately not being seen or getting enough, time in the limelight. I would say for like building that content and like tools to use, Canva is definitely like my number one recommendation. They've made great strides as well in like letting you build brand kits so you can lock in on your colors, your fonts, your setup. You can build templates. So again, you can kind of alleviate the stress of not having to start with a truly blank slate every time you need to build a post, but you can build yourself like a very comfortable and confident brand kit and then be able to kind of plug in new information, allows you to move quickly. So Canva, it also has video editing capabilities. So when you talk about like putting together different clips, it allows you to edit video, add text over it, you can add different captions or hashtags kind of overlaid onto your video. So Canva definitely is kind of a great tool. It also, you can use it in a free version or you can invest a little bit more to get pro, and it's got great stock photos, stock video as well. So if you're like looking to figure out how you're going to build that video content, maybe you don't have a robust library, which most don't, you can use a lot of that stock imagery for like commercial use. So it definitely has, I think, the most to offer. And then obviously partnering with freelancers is always great. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of like college students who are looking to get more into those creative roles, and they do just have a very deep understanding having grown up with social media. So having them to help with, editing TikTok videos or just different videos and using kind of those trending audios, it's so natural to them and it's great experience for them. They want to build their portfolio and resume, and also it's definitely a lower investment to partnering with someone just getting started.
Yeah, that's a great
Love
idea.
that.
I love that idea. Well, I just want to summarize. We've covered a lot of ground here, and thank you so much, Kate, for sharing your insights on social media for launching. Just recapping what we talked about, before you even start creating content, make sure you know your customers, what they care about, what they need, what problems you're solving for them so that you can develop content that they care about. You shouldn't go out on social media just telling people about you and your service. You should be telling, because people don't care. You should be telling people about something that they care about. The one caveat to that is that your network, people that your colleagues, probably do care what you're up to. And that is a valuable resource when you're starting off, is you should go to your network and let people know, hey, I'm launching this off on my own now. I'm going off, and people will be interested in that and interested in learning more about what you're doing and staying connected with you. But that's about it, right? After your network, no one cares about what you're doing. They just care about what's in it for them. The other thing we talked about is you don't have to be on every single social media platform when you launch. Um, it's okay to be selective and choose ones that are right for your business and products. The other thing we talked about was you don't have to post every day. You don't have to post every other day. As long as you're sharing meaningful content, there should be some regularity in your posts so that you're not going radio silent for days or months on at a time. But don't put that pressure on yourself that you've got to get something out, every 12 hours. That's just insane. And the other thing we talked about was, help me. I know there was something else. Tools. We talked about tools and what you can use and resources that you could go to DIY some of that content, or some low cost options with freelancers, or potentially even people that are just kind of starting off in their careers or coming out of college that are looking for that experience, and honestly are really, like you said, very adept just naturally at the social media game. That generation. So they've grown up with social media, and it's cool to see what they can do, because I think sometimes they have better ideas than we do sometimes.
I personally feel better after just launching all of Anemi. I'm like, okay, because it's a lot to be launching a business and
It's a
having to
lot.
do all of the things. So I feel like, okay, well, that's doable. We just have to sit down and, write the posts, get them scheduled, all the things. I think the hardest thing for me, and maybe to leave, is getting in front of the camera myself. I do not feel comfortable with that. And I know a lot of female founders are running businesses. Do you have any last minute nuggets for them of tips for success and getting in front of the camera?
Yeah, I would say I too don't love being in front of the camera. Like, I love creating content for other people and featuring them and showcasing them. I feel like someone gave me this advice when I first started, and I still hesitate to get in front of the camera, but I think of it every time I have to go to pitch myself or sell myself for different services and offerings. And it's, think about yourself like your friends think about you. Most people have a group chat that's always going to support you and hype you up and give you all the kudos and recognition for your work. And if I just let myself pretend to be my best friend who would be talking about me and pitching my ideas, it's oh, how all of a sudden you can steal their kind of confidence in you. And that's helped. My first LinkedIn post, I was so nervous, but I called a friend and I was just sit here while I do this and tell everybody I'm taking this chance. And I feel like that's always helped me. And, I feel like my best friends would get in front of a camera and hype me up with no hesitation. But
Yeah,
sometimes the fear of doing it for yourself is where I hesitate. And so I don't know, I just
absolutely.
kind of steal a little confidence from them. And
I love that.
I
that's
do
That's
helped me.
awesome.
too.
Yeah.
That's amazing advice.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for taking the time to chat with us today. I hope that if you're listening, you've got some really good little nuggets to take and use in your launch plan, or even just adapt your existing social media strategy from here. So thanks so much. And we'll be sure to share how people could get to reach you if they're interested in working with you. Where should they go to find you?
Yeah, I would say just kategrahek.com, contact form. You can reach out there. Otherwise, like I said, LinkedIn is mostly what I use for my business. So you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm always happy to connect. And I love having virtual and in real life coffee dates and talking to other people starting their business. It doesn't matter if I've been doing it for a year, there's so much I need to learn too. So all those different connects are always great.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure
Amazing.
to put a link to your website, kategrahek.com, and your LinkedIn in our show notes as well, so that people can get those handy links and get a hold of you if they would like to learn more about social strategy.
Love it.
Awesome.
Thank you both.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.